The emergency alert screamed through New Geneva Medical Center at 0347 hours, jolting Nurse Sarah Chun from her routine medication rounds. Red lights bathed the pediatric intensive care unit in an ominous glow as she rushed toward the trauma bay. The automated voice echoed through empty corridors. Code Xenological. All qualified personnel to Trauma Bay 7. Code Xenological. Sarah's heart hammered against her ribs. In 15 years of nursing, she had never heard that particular code. The Galactic Council had established protocols for alien medical emergencies 3 years ago, but Earth's hospitals had yet to encounter a real case. Most staff assumed they never would. Dr. Marcus Webb burst through the doors ahead of her, his usually pristine lab coat already wrinkled from sleep. Behind him came Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Xenobiology and Dr. Amara Okafor, the hospital's leading pediatric specialist. The trio represented the best medical minds New Geneva had to offer, yet Sarah noticed uncertainty in their movements. "What do we know?" Dr. Webb called out to the paramedic team wheeling in a specialized containment unit. Diplomatic transport crash-landed 20 kilometers outside the city. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes from the United Earth Defense Force explained, his uniform bearing scorch marks. 3 adult casualties didn't make it. This one, he gestured toward the containment unit, his voice trailing off. Through the transparent aluminum viewing panel, Sarah caught her first glimpse of an alien life form. The infant creature measured roughly the size of a human newborn, but possessed distinctly non-human characteristics. Its skin shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting between deep purple and silver as bioluminescent patterns pulsed weakly beneath the surface. 4 delicate arms emerged from its torso, each ending in elongated fingers that seemed to grasp at nothing. Most striking were its eyes, large, multifaceted organs that reflected light like polished gems, even though they remained closed. "Species designation?" Dr. Tanaka asked, her scanner already collecting preliminary data. "Zephyrian," Hayes replied, one of the Council's founding members. Their ambassador was traveling to Earth for the colony establishment talks when their ship experienced catastrophic system failure. "DR." Webb stepped closer to the containment unit, his expression grave. "Vital signs." The paramedic checked his readings. "Extremely weak. Heart rate equivalent fluctuating between critical lows. Respiratory function minimal. Internal temperature dropping steadily. Our scanners can't determine much else without baseline Zephyrian physiology data." Sarah watched as the team of doctors exchanged worried glances. The Galactic Council's medical database contained basic information about member species, but detailed pediatric care protocols remained classified or simply unknown. Treating an adult alien presented challenges. Caring for an infant from an unknown species seemed impossible. "Give me everything we have on Zephyrian physiology," Dr. Webb ordered. "Contact the Council's medical advisor. Wake up whoever you need to wake up." Dr. Okafor was already examining the readings from the portable life support system. "These numbers don't look good. If this were a human infant with these vitals, I'd say we have maybe 6 hours before organ failure becomes irreversible. But it's not human," Dr. Tanaka interjected, her fingers flying across her tablet as she accessed xenobiology databases. "We can't apply human medical standards. The bioluminescent patterns could indicate normal cellular activity for their species. The multiple limbs suggest a completely different circulatory system." Sarah found herself drawn closer to the containment unit. Something about the tiny creature tugged at her maternal instincts, transcending species barriers. The infant's bioluminescent patterns seemed to respond to her presence, pulsing slightly brighter when she approached. "We need to establish communication with Zephyr Prime immediately," Dr. Webb decided. "Get their medical experts on a priority channel." Lieutenant Colonel Hayes shook his head. "Communications with Zephyr Prime take 18 hours minimum at light speed. The nearest Zephyrian medical facility is 47 hours away at maximum military transport speed." The weight of those words settled over the team like a suffocating blanket. Even if they could reach Zephyrian medical experts, the infant would likely die long before help arrived. Dr. Okafor pulled up the preliminary scans on the main display. Look at these organ structures. Nothing matches human anatomy. The cardiac equivalent appears to have 6 chambers arranged in a spiral pattern. The respiratory system seems to process atmosphere through both oral cavity and skin absorption. I don't even know where to begin with treatment protocols. We start with basics, Sarah interjected, surprising herself with the firmness in her voice. Her pairs of eyes turned toward her. I've spent 15 years keeping human babies alive against impossible odds. Maybe the anatomy is different, but the fundamental needs might be similar. Warmth, nutrition, oxygenation, circulation support. Dr. Webb frowned. Nurse Chun, with respect, we're dealing with an entirely alien physiology. Human protocols could kill it faster than doing nothing. Doing nothing will definitely kill it, Sarah countered. Look at those vitals. That baby is dying right now while we debate theoretical approaches. Dr. Tanaka's scanner beeped with incoming data. Initial atmospheric analysis shows it can process Earth's air composition, though it seems to prefer a higher oxygen concentration and slightly elevated humidity. That's something. Sarah moved to the containment unit's control panel. The temperature regulation system is set for Earth normal ranges. For all we know, this species requires a completely different thermal environment. Nurse Chun, please step back, Dr. Webb ordered. We need to wait for expert consultation before making any modifications. But Sarah had already noticed something the doctors missed. The infant's bioluminescent patterns grew dimmer as the containment unit's temperature control system cycled to maintain Earth normal conditions. Each time the cooling system activated, the light patterns faded further. It's too cold, she said firmly. Watch the patterns when the temperature drops. The team observed in silence as the containment unit's environmental controls cycled through their routine adjustment. Sure enough, each cooling cycle corresponded with a noticeable dimming of the infant's natural luminescence. Dr. Tanaka quickly adjusted her scanner settings. Fascinating. The bioluminescent organs seemed directly tied to metabolic activity. If Sarah's right about the temperature correlation, we could be watching its life force literally fade away, Dr. Okafor finished. Dr. Webb hesitated, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. Any temperature adjustment could cause thermal shock. We don't know their tolerance ranges. Sarah was already accessing the containment unit's emergency override protocols. Then we make small adjustments and monitor carefully. But we have to try something. Nurse Chun, I order you to step away from those controls, Dr. Webb said sharply. The room fell silent except for the steady beeping of monitoring equipment. Sarah looked at the dying infant, then at the assembled medical team. In all her years of nursing, she had never directly disobeyed a physician's order. But she had also never watched a baby die while the adults argued about proper procedures. Doctor, with all due respect, that baby doesn't have time for committees and consultations, she said quietly. Sometimes you have to act on instinct and experience rather than textbooks. Before anyone could stop her, Sarah initiated a gradual temperature increase of 2 degrees Celsius. The modification was slight enough to avoid thermal shock, but sufficient to test her hypothesis. Within 30 seconds, the infant's bioluminescent patterns brightened noticeably. The vital signs monitor registered improved cardiac rhythm and increased respiratory activity. Dr. Webb stared at the readings in amazement. How did you know? I didn't, Sarah admitted. But I've seen enough dying babies to recognize the signs. Sometimes the most important thing isn't knowing exactly what's wrong. It's knowing when something is getting worse and being willing to try alternatives. Dr. Tanaka was frantically recording the data. The metabolic improvement is significant. Temperature appears to be a critical factor in their physiological function. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes stepped forward. The crash site investigation team found evidence of environmental controls set for much higher temperatures than Earth standard. The ship's life support systems were configured for conditions that would be uncomfortable but not dangerous for humans. So we gradually increased the temperature toward those parameters while monitoring vital signs, Dr. Okafor suggested. It's a reasonable approach. Dr. Webb nodded slowly, his initial resistance fading as the evidence mounted. Nurse Chun, continue with gradual temperature adjustments. Increase by 1 degree every 10 minutes while we monitor response. Dr. Tanaka, I want continuous metabolic readings. Dr. Okafor, prepare for emergency intervention if we see any signs of distress. Over the next hour, Sarah carefully guided the environmental controls toward optimal conditions for their tiny patient. Each adjustment brought noticeable improvement in the infant's condition. The bioluminescent patterns grew brighter and more complex, vital signs stabilized, and the creature even began to stir slightly. Remarkable recovery, Dr. Tanaka observed. The improvement rate exceeds anything I would have predicted, but Sarah knew they had only addressed one critical factor. Temperature stabilization bought them time, but the infant still required proper nutrition, and they had no idea what Zephyrian infants ate or how they consumed it. The good news is we've proven that basic life support principles apply across species, she said. The challenge is figuring out feeding requirements before malnutrition becomes critical. Dr. Webb pulled up the communication interface. I'm ordering an emergency consultation with every xenobiology expert in the solar system. Someone has to have research on Zephyrian dietary requirements. That could take hours we don't have, Sarah pointed out. Look at the metabolic readings. This infant is burning energy rapidly to maintain these improved vital signs. Without proper nutrition, the temperature adjustment only delays the inevitable. Dr. Okafor was studying the anatomical scans. The digestive system appears more complex than human infants. Multiple processing chambers, enhanced absorption surfaces. It suggests a species evolved for extracting maximum nutrition from limited food sources. Sarah examined the infant more closely, noticing details the sophisticated scanners missed. The creature's 4 hands displayed subtle color changes at the fingertips, and its mouth structure seemed designed for more than simple feeding. What if we're thinking about this wrong? She mused aloud. Human infants require milk specifically formulated for human development. But what if Zephyrian infants need something completely different? Dr. Tanaka looked up from her data analysis. The atmospheric processing suggests they might derive some nutrition directly from air composition. Enhanced oxygen levels could provide more than just respiratory support. Atmospheric feeding? Dr. Webb seemed skeptical. That's highly speculative. Sarah was already adjusting the containment unit's atmospheric controls, increasing oxygen concentration while monitoring the infant's response. Almost immediately, the bioluminescent patterns became more intricate, and the metabolic readings showed improved energy utilization. It's working, Dr. Okafor confirmed, studying the data streams. Enhanced atmospheric nutrition. The respiratory system appears designed for dual function, gas exchange and nutrient absorption. But even as they celebrated this breakthrough, Sarah noticed troubling signs. The infant's movements were becoming more agitated, and the bioluminescent pattern seemed less organized, more chaotic. Something's still wrong, she announced. The basic needs are being met, but there's another factor we're missing. Dr. Tanaka's scanner detected unusual electromagnetic fluctuations emanating from the infant. The bioluminescent organs are generating complex light patterns. It could be attempted communication. Sarah leaned closer to the containment unit, studying the shifting colors and pulses. The pattern seemed almost rhythmic, like a distress signal or call for help. It's trying to communicate, she realized. But there's no one here who can respond in its own language. The team fell silent as the implications became clear. They had managed to stabilize the infant's basic physiological needs, but they couldn't address its psychological and social requirements. A baby of any species needed more than just life support. It needed connection, comfort, and care from others who understood its needs. As if responding to their conversation, the infant's bioluminescent patterns became more frantic, and its vital signs began to fluctuate despite the optimal environmental conditions. Sarah watched the tiny alien struggling with isolation and fear and made another decision that would change everything. "I'm going in," she announced, moving toward the containment unit's access port. "Absolutely not," Dr. Webb said immediately. "We don't know about disease transmission, toxic skin secretions, or dozens of other potential hazards. That baby is dying of loneliness, Sarah replied firmly. All the environmental controls in the world won't matter if it gives up hope. She was already donning the specialized protective suit required for direct alien contact. The suit would protect her from most biological hazards while allowing limited physical interaction. Nurse Chun, I cannot authorize this level of risk, Dr. Webb insisted. Sarah paused at the containment unit's entry port, looking back at the assembled medical team. Then, don't authorize it. But don't stop me either. Sometimes being human means taking risks to save a life, regardless of species. Without waiting for further argument, she activated the entry sequence and stepped into the controlled environment where an alien infant fought for its life. The sterile air inside the containment unit felt thick and humid against Sarah's face mask as she approached the alien infant. The specialized protective suit allowed for careful movement, but limited her dexterity. Every step required deliberate consideration as she entered an environment designed for a species humanity barely understood. The Zephyrian infant lay motionless on the specialized bed, its four arms spread wide as bioluminescent patterns continued their frantic pulsing beneath translucent skin. Up close, Sarah could see intricate details the external scanners had missed. Tiny hair-like structures covered the infant's body, constantly moving in response to air currents. Its breathing appeared shallow, but steady, and she could hear a soft humming sound emanating from somewhere within its chest cavity. Vital signs are stable. Dr. Tanaka's voice came through the communication system. But I'm reading increased electromagnetic activity from the bioluminescent organs. It's definitely responding to your presence. Sarah knelt beside the bed, careful not to make sudden movements that might startle the infant. The creature's large, multifaceted eyes remained closed, but the light patterns across its skin intensified as she drew near. The colors shifted from deep purple to brilliant silver, creating mesmerizing displays that seemed to follow her movements. "Hello, little one," she whispered softly, knowing the words meant nothing, but hoping her tone might convey comfort. "You're safe now. We're going to take care of you." The infant's bioluminescent patterns suddenly changed, organizing into more structured sequences. The chaotic flashing became rhythmic pulses that seemed almost like a response to her voice. Dr. Webb's voice crackled through the intercom. "Sarah, the electromagnetic readings are off the charts. Whatever you're doing is causing significant physiological changes. Good changes or bad changes?" Sarah asked, keeping her voice low and soothing as she studied the infant's responses. "Unknown. The patterns are unlike anything in our xenobiology databases. You're in uncharted territory." Sarah had spent her career in uncharted territory. Every premature human infant presented unique challenges. Every critical case required improvisation and instinct. She had learned to read subtle signs that machines couldn't detect, to sense when a baby was fighting to survive versus when it was giving up hope. The Zephyrian infant was definitely fighting. Carefully, she extended one gloved hand toward the creature. The protective suit's biofilters would prevent contamination in either direction while allowing limited tactile contact. As her fingertips approached the infant's nearest arm, the bioluminescent patterns intensified dramatically. "Sarah, I'm reading massive neural activity spikes," Dr. Tanaka reported. "Whatever communication system they use appears to be activating." The moment Sarah's gloved fingers made contact with the infant's skin, everything changed. The bioluminescent patterns exploded into brilliant displays of color and light, but more importantly, Sarah felt something she couldn't explain, a sense of connection that transcended physical touch. Images flashed through her mind. Vast crystalline cities beneath alien stars, beings of light and beauty moving through spaces that defied human understanding. Warm embraces from creatures with four arms and gentle, complex songs. The visions lasted only seconds, but they left Sarah breathless with their intensity and emotional depth. "What just happened?" Dr. Webb's voice seemed distant, filtered through the lingering aftereffects of the contact. "I don't know," Sarah admitted, her voice shaking slightly. "But I think it just showed me something. Memories, maybe? Images of its home." The infant's bioluminescent patterns had settled into a steady, rhythmic pulse that somehow felt like contentment. Its vital signs on the external monitors showed marked improvement across all categories. Dr. Okafor's excited voice came through the communication system. Remarkable. Heart rate normalized, respiratory function improved by 30%, neural activity indicating healthy brain development patterns. Whatever just happened was definitely beneficial. Sarah maintained gentle contact with the infant, feeling that strange connection strengthen. She began to understand that the bioluminescent displays weren't just random patterns. They were a form of communication far more sophisticated than human language. Emotions, memories, and concepts could be shared directly through some form of bioelectromagnetic interface. The Zephyrians are telepathic, she announced, the realization hitting her like a revelation. Not telepathic in the science fiction sense, but they share experiences through direct bioelectromagnetic contact. That's why isolation was killing this baby. It needs connection to survive, just like human infants need human contact. Dr. Tanaka's scanners were working overtime, recording the unprecedented interspecies communication event. The electromagnetic field around both the infant and Sarah has synchronized. They're operating on the same frequency somehow. Through the strange connection, Sarah sensed the infant's basic needs with startling clarity. Hunger remained a pressing concern, but now she could feel exactly what type of nutrition the tiny creature required. The atmospheric feeding they had discovered was only part of the equation. Zephyrian infants also needed specific mineral compounds that their bodies couldn't synthesize independently. It needs calcium and iron supplements, Sarah reported, but not in the forms we use for human nutrition. The calcium should be dissolved in a high pH solution, and the iron needs to be combined with organic compounds similar to chlorophyll. Dr. Webb sounded skeptical. How could you possibly know that level of detail? Because it's showing me, Sarah replied simply. The bioluminescent communication system allows direct transfer of survival information. Parent to child, caregiver to infant. It's how their species ensures proper care. Dr. Okafor was already working on the nutritional requirements. We can synthesize those compounds in the hospital laboratory. Give me 40 minutes to prepare the proper formulations. But Sarah sensed something else through the connection, a growing awareness that the infant was becoming attached to her specifically. The bioelectromagnetic bond that enabled communication also created emotional connections. The Zephyrian baby was beginning to see her as a surrogate caregiver, perhaps even as a substitute parent. There's a complication, she announced reluctantly. The communication system creates lasting bonds. This infant is imprinting on me as its primary caregiver. I don't know if that connection can be transferred to other people. Dr. Webb's voice carried new concern. What are the implications of that? Sarah could feel the infant's contentment whenever she maintained contact, and anxiety whenever she moved away. The bioluminescent patterns dimmed noticeably if she stepped back even a few inches. It means I can't leave, she said quietly. At least not until we establish contact with adult Zephyrians who can take over its care. This baby has bonded with me as its survival anchor. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes entered the conversation. Nurse Chun, we've received updates from the diplomatic channels. The Zephyrian government is sending a medical rescue ship, but transit time is still 36 hours minimum. Can you maintain this level of contact for that duration? Sarah looked at the tiny alien infant, its bioluminescent patterns pulsing gently in response to her presence. Through their connection, she could sense its growing strength and curiosity about the strange new world around it. The creature was remarkably intelligent, already learning to distinguish between different humans by their electromagnetic signatures. I can do whatever this baby needs, she replied with quiet determination. But we need to establish a proper care routine that doesn't require me to remain inside the containment unit constantly. Dr. Tanaka was studying the bioelectromagnetic readings with fascination. The connection appears to have a range component. Sarah, try stepping back gradually while maintaining visual contact with the infant. Carefully, Sarah moved away from the bed, while keeping her eyes focused on the baby. The bioluminescent patterns dimmed slightly, but remained stable until she reached a distance of approximately 3 meters. Beyond that point, the infant showed signs of distress. 3 meters maximum separation, she reported. That gives us some flexibility for care routines. Over the next several hours, the medical team developed unprecedented protocols for interspecies infant care. Sarah remained inside the containment unit, providing the emotional and communication support the baby required, while the other doctors worked on nutritional and medical needs from outside. The synthesized mineral supplements proved successful. When introduced into the infant's atmospheric environment, the creature instinctively knew how to absorb them through specialized pores in its skin. Sarah could feel its satisfaction and growing strength through their bioelectromagnetic connection. Fascinating adaptation, Dr. Tanaka observed. The infant can derive nutrition from atmospheric sources, direct contact absorption, and traditional oral feeding. It's the most versatile nutritional system I've ever encountered. But as the hours passed, Sarah began to notice changes in herself as well. The prolonged bioelectromagnetic contact was affecting her physiology in subtle ways. Her reflexes seemed sharper. Her ability to perceive electromagnetic fields had increased noticeably, and she found herself understanding complex concepts about Zephyrian culture and society without direct communication. The connection is bidirectional, she realized. I'm not just providing care for the baby, it's sharing its species knowledge with me. This is how Zephyrians transfer cultural information between generations. Dr. Webb's concern was evident in his voice. Are there any negative effects? Unknown health risks from prolonged alien contact. Sarah assessed her condition carefully. She felt energized rather than fatigued, mentally sharp rather than confused. If anything, the bioelectromagnetic connection seemed to be enhancing her cognitive abilities. No negative effects so far, she reported. If anything, I feel more capable than before. The infant's nervous system seems to be optimizing my brain function for better communication efficiency. Dr. Okafor was monitoring Sarah's vital signs from outside the containment unit. Her neurological readings show increased activity in areas associated with pattern recognition and intuitive processing. The alien contact appears to be temporarily enhancing her cognitive abilities. Through the shared connection, Sarah learned more about Zephyrian society. They were an ancient species with a deep reverence for life and a complex social structure based on bioelectromagnetic communication networks. Individual Zephyrians could link their consciousness temporarily to share experiences and knowledge. Family groups maintained permanent connections that allowed for collective decision-making and shared emotional support. The infant comes from a high-ranking diplomatic family, Sarah explained to the team. Its parents were among the most respected ambassadors in Zephyrian society. The knowledge it carries includes critical information about interstellar politics and trade agreements. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes straightened with interest. Are you saying this infant has strategic intelligence value? I'm saying it's a refugee who lost its family in a tragic accident, Sarah replied firmly. But, yes, it does carry inherited memories that could be important for future human-Zephyrian relations. That makes protecting it even more critical. As the day progressed, news of the unprecedented interspecies medical case spread throughout the hospital and beyond. Xenobiology experts from around the world requested access to the data being collected. Government officials inquired about the strategic implications. Media outlets clamored for information about humanity's first alien patient. But Sarah remained focused on the fundamental responsibility of keeping a baby alive and healthy. The political and scientific implications were secondary to the immediate needs of a vulnerable infant who depended on her for survival. The rescue ship's arrival time has been updated, Lieutenant Colonel Hayes announced. They've pushed their engines beyond safe parameters and will arrive in 18 hours. However, they're requesting detailed medical reports and want to establish communication with their infant before landing. Dr. Webb nodded. We can transmit all our data, but establishing communication might be challenging. The bioelectromagnetic connection seems to require physical proximity. Sarah felt the infant stir in response to the mention of its own species. Through their connection, she sensed its excitement and anticipation at the prospect of reuniting with other Zephyrians. But she also detected anxiety about separation from its human caregiver. It wants to maintain connection with me, even after its people arrive, she reported. I think I've become something like an adopted family member in Zephyrian terms. Dr. Tanaka found this development particularly interesting. Interspecies bonding could have profound implications for future diplomatic relations. If humans and Zephyrians can form genuine emotional connections, it opens possibilities for cooperation that go far beyond formal treaties. But Sarah was more concerned with immediate practical matters. The infant was growing stronger and more active, which meant its care requirements were becoming more complex. It needed stimulus and interaction beyond basic life support. We need to create an enrichment environment, she announced. This baby is intelligent and curious. It needs mental stimulation appropriate for its developmental stage. Dr. Okafor was intrigued. What kind of stimulation does a Zephyrian infant require? Through their connection, Sarah could sense the infant's interest in light patterns, electromagnetic fields, and complex harmonic vibrations. It was naturally drawn to activities that would develop its bioelectromagnetic communication abilities. Light displays, electromagnetic puzzles, harmonic resonance games, Sarah explained. Things that help develop the communication abilities that are crucial for Zephyrian social integration. The medical team worked through the night to create appropriate enrichment activities using available hospital equipment. They rigged LED displays to create complex light patterns, generated controlled electromagnetic fields for the infant to explore, and even composed harmonic sequences based on Zephyrian cultural memories Sarah accessed through their connection. By morning, the containment unit had been transformed into a sophisticated developmental environment designed specifically for an alien infant. The baby responded with obvious delight, its bioluminescent patterns creating intricate displays as it interacted with each new stimulus. Remarkable progress, Dr. Tanaka observed. Cognitive development appears to be accelerating rapidly with appropriate stimulation. Sarah could feel the infant's growing confidence and contentment. What had begun as a desperate medical emergency was evolving into a successful interspecies childcare program. But she also knew their time was limited. The Zephyrian rescue ship would arrive soon, and difficult decisions would have to be made about the infant's future. The distinctive harmonic resonance of Zephyrian engines announced the rescue ship's arrival long before it appeared on New Geneva's tracking systems. Sarah felt the infant's excitement spike through their bioelectromagnetic connection as familiar frequencies penetrated the hospital's walls. The tiny creature's bioluminescent patterns erupted into displays of pure joy, colors cascading across its skin in patterns Sarah had learned to recognize as anticipation and hope. Zephyrian vessel requesting permission to land at the medical center's emergency pad. The communications officer reported to Lieutenant Colonel Hayes. They're transmitting authentication codes and diplomatic credentials. Dr. Webb monitored the infant's vital signs as its physiological responses intensified. Heart rate elevated but stable. The electromagnetic activity is unprecedented. It's like the baby is trying to communicate across interstellar distances. Through their connection, Sarah could sense the infant reaching out with its developing bioelectromagnetic abilities, sending recognition signals toward the approaching ship. The response came as a wave of warm, comforting presence that washed through the containment unit like a gentle embrace. There are other Zephyrians responding, Sarah announced, tears forming in her eyes as she experienced the profound emotion of the moment. I can feel their relief and joy. They thought this baby was lost forever. Dr. Tanaka's instruments registered the expanding electromagnetic field as more Zephyrians joined the communication network. The bioelectromagnetic signature is becoming incredibly complex. Multiple individuals are participating in some kind of collective consciousness experience. The rescue ship settled onto the hospital's landing pad with graceful precision, its organic curves and crystalline structures unlike any human vehicle. Through the containment unit's external cameras, Sarah watched as the ship's access portal dilated open, revealing beings of ethereal beauty and alien majesty. 3 adult Zephyrians emerged, their movements flowing like liquid light. Each stood roughly human height, but possessed the characteristic 4 arms and iridescent skin that marked their species. Their bioluminescent patterns were far more sophisticated than the infant's simple displays, creating cascading networks of color and light that seemed to communicate volumes of information in seconds. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes met them at the landing pad, his diplomatic training evident in his careful, respectful approach. The lead Zephyrian, distinguished by elegant silver traces threading through its natural patterns, stepped forward and began a complex light display that somehow conveyed formal greeting and urgent concern simultaneously. "They don't speak audible languages," Sarah explained to the medical team. "All communication is bioelectromagnetic. But I think I can serve as an interpreter through my connection with the infant." Dr. Webb looked concerned. "Are you certain that's safe?" "We don't know the limits of your physiological adaptation to their communication system." Sarah could already feel her consciousness expanding as the adult Zephyrians' more powerful bioelectromagnetic fields influenced her enhanced neural pathways. Information flowed through her in organized streams, formal introductions, expressions of gratitude, urgent questions about the infant's condition, and profound sorrow for the lives lost in the accident. "The leader is Ambassador 7th Light of Dawn," she translated, her voice taking on an almost musical quality as she processed the complex information transfer. "The other 2 are medical specialists, Healer Many Colors Flowing and Caregiver Starsong Gentle. They're here to evaluate the infant and determine the best course for its future care." The Zephyrian delegation was escorted through the hospital's corridors amid unprecedented security measures. Word of their arrival had spread throughout the facility, and staff members lined the hallways to catch glimpses of humanity's first formal alien visitors. The Zephyrians moved with dignified grace, their bioluminescent patterns creating subtle acknowledgments of the curious humans they passed. When they entered the containment chamber's observation area, the infant's response was immediate and overwhelming. Its bioluminescent displays exploded into brilliant configurations that painted the entire room in shifting colors. The adult Zephyrians responded with their own complex patterns, creating a symphony of light that spoke of reunion, love, and carefully controlled grief. Sarah found herself at the center of an extraordinary communication network. Through her enhanced connection with the infant, she could partially access the broader conversation taking place between the Zephyrians. The emotional intensity was staggering. Relief at finding the infant alive, sorrow for the lost diplomatic mission, concern about the child's psychological state after traumatic separation from its species. "They want to examine the infant directly," Sarah interpreted, her voice straining as she processed the flood of alien thoughts and emotions. "But they're concerned about disrupting the bond it has formed with me." In Zephyrian culture, breaking established caregiver connections can cause severe psychological trauma. Ambassador 7th Light of Dawn approached the containment unit's control panel, its patterns shifting to interrogative modes as it sought information about the infant's care. Sarah felt its surprise and growing respect as the medical team's efforts were communicated through the bioelectromagnetic network. "The ambassador is amazed by the quality of care provided," Sarah reported. They had expected to find the infant in critical condition, possibly catatonic from isolation trauma. Instead, they're seeing a healthy, well-developed child with strong cognitive function and emotional stability. Dr. Okafor stepped forward. "Please convey our gratitude for their confidence in our efforts. We want to ensure the smoothest possible transition for the infant's future care." Through the translation network, Sarah felt the Zephyrians' responses to this statement. The concepts being communicated were complex and culturally significant, requiring careful interpretation. "There's a complication," Sarah announced after processing the aliens' concerns. In Zephyrian society, the caregiver who saves an orphaned infant becomes legally and emotionally responsible for that child's well-being. By accepting care of this infant, I have inadvertently entered into something equivalent to adoption proceedings. Dr. Webb's eyebrows shot up. You mean they consider you the baby's parent now? More accurately, they consider me its primary caregiver with permanent responsibility for its welfare, Sarah clarified. The bioelectromagnetic bond I've formed with the infant is recognized as a legitimate family connection in their legal system. Ambassador Seventh of Dawn's patterns shifted to urgent, concerned configurations. Through Sarah, it communicated the profound implications of the situation. The ambassador explains that separating bonded caregivers from Zephyrian infants can cause irreversible psychological damage, Sarah translated. But they also understand that I have my own life and responsibilities on Earth. They're asking if I would be willing to accompany the infant to Zephyr Prime to ensure proper transition to adult caregivers of their species. The request hung in the air like a challenge to everything Sarah had ever known about her life and future. Travel to an alien world, leave behind her career and human relationships, enter a society she barely understood, all to ensure the psychological well-being of a creature she had known for less than 2 days. Yet through their connection, she could feel the infant's absolute trust in her, its complete dependence on her presence for emotional security. The idea of abandoning that trust was unthinkable. How long would such a transition process require? Dr. Webb asked practically. Healer Many Colors Flowing approached the communication network, its expertise evident in the precise clinical information it shared. Sarah processed the medical details with her enhanced cognitive abilities. Minimum 18 months Earth time for proper psychological integration, Sarah interpreted. The infant needs to maintain connection with me while gradually forming bonds with adult Zephyrians. The process cannot be rushed without risking permanent emotional damage. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes entered the conversation from a diplomatic perspective. What about Miss Chen's citizenship status? Would she be considered a guest, immigrant, or diplomatic personnel on Zephyr Prime? Ambassador Seventh of Dawn's response carried legal complexity that strained Sarah's translation abilities. The concepts involved alien jurisprudence and interstellar citizenship protocols that had no human equivalents. I would be granted provisional citizenship as the infant's legal guardian, Sarah explained. The position carries a significant social status and legal protections, but also binding responsibilities. I would be expected to learn Zephyrian culture, contribute to society, and potentially serve as an interspecies liaison. Dr. Tanaka was fascinated by the implications. You would essentially become humanity's first permanent alien resident. The scientific and cultural knowledge you could gain would be invaluable. But Sarah's decision wasn't based on scientific or diplomatic considerations. Through her connection with the infant, she could feel its growing anxiety as the adults discussed its future. The tiny creature didn't understand the complex negotiations taking place, but it sensed that important decisions were being made about its care. I need to discuss this with the baby, Sarah announced, turning her attention to the infant and opening their bioelectromagnetic connection to full communication mode. What followed was a conversation unlike anything in human experience. Sarah shared her concerns and questions directly through the bioelectromagnetic link, while the infant responded with its own needs and fears. The exchange lasted only minutes in real time, but felt like hours of intimate discussion. It wants to stay with me, Sarah reported, her voice heavy with emotion. But it also wants to learn about its own species and culture. It's asking if we can find a solution that doesn't require choosing between human and Zephyrian connections. Ambassador Seventh Light of Dawn had been monitoring the exchange through the expanded network. Its response carried new possibilities and creative solutions. The ambassador suggests a compromise, Sarah translated. I could accompany the infant to Zephyr Prime for the initial integration period, but with regular return visits to Earth to maintain my human connections. As the infant develops stronger bonds with its own species, my presence would be required less frequently. Dr. Webb looked concerned about the personal implications. Sarah, this would fundamentally change your entire life. Your career, your relationships, your future, everything would be different. Through the alien communication network, Sarah could sense the Zephyrians' understanding of her sacrifice. Their culture placed enormous value on caregiver dedication, and they recognized the magnitude of what they were asking. The Zephyrian government would provide full compensation and support, she continued interpreting. Housing, education, medical care, and a permanent position as interspecies cultural liaison. It's actually an incredible opportunity for both personal growth and service to humanity. But the most compelling factor wasn't the practical benefits or career opportunities. It was the infant itself, reaching out to her through their bioelectromagnetic connection with absolute trust and need. The tiny creature had survived impossible odds through her care, and now it needed her continued presence to complete its journey to healthy adulthood. Caregiver Starsong Gentle joined the communication network, sharing detailed information about the infant's developmental needs and the integration process required. Sarah absorbed the knowledge directly, understanding in minutes what would normally require years of study. The integration process is actually fascinating, she explained to the human medical team. Zephyrian infants develop their bioelectromagnetic abilities gradually, learning to join the collective consciousness networks that define their society. My connection provides a bridge between human individual consciousness and Zephyrian collective awareness. Dr. Okafor was intrigued by the psychological implications. So, you would essentially help the infant develop bilingual consciousness, the ability to function in both human individual-based thinking and Zephyrian collective-based awareness? Exactly. And in the process, I would develop the same bilingual consciousness abilities. It's an unprecedented opportunity for interspecies understanding. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes was considering the diplomatic aspects. The strategic value of having a human citizen with full access to Zephyrian society could be enormous. You would essentially become humanity's primary intelligence asset for one of the galaxy's most influential species. Through the communication network, Ambassador Seventh Light of Dawn conveyed agreement with this assessment. The Zephyrian government viewed Sarah's potential role as equally valuable from their perspective, a trusted human liaison who could facilitate better understanding between species. Both governments would benefit from this arrangement, Sarah realized. And, most importantly, the infant would receive the care it needs to develop into a healthy, well-adjusted adult. Dr. Tanaka was recording everything for future xenobiological research. The precedent you would establish could shape interspecies relations for generations. Other alien species might adopt similar caregiver exchange programs. But, as the discussions continued, Sarah became aware of growing concern from the infant. Through their connection, she sensed its worry that all this talk about benefits and opportunities was overshadowing the simple fact that they had formed a genuine emotional bond. The tiny creature didn't care about diplomacy or scientific advancement. It just wanted the security of knowing its caregiver would remain available. I need some time alone with the baby to discuss this properly, Sarah announced. This decision affects both of us, and I want to make sure I understand its feelings completely before committing to anything. The adults, both human and Zephyrian, agreed to withdraw from the immediate area while Sarah engaged in private communication with the infant. What followed was an intimate exchange that transcended species barriers and touched the fundamental nature of parent-child relationships throughout the universe. Sarah sat quietly beside the infant in the containment unit, their bioelectromagnetic connection humming with gentle communication. Outside, both human and Zephyrian officials waited for her decision about the most important choice of her life. But, in this moment, only two beings mattered: a human nurse who had risked everything to save a life, and an alien infant who had survived against all predictions through her dedication. Through their connection, the infant shared its simple but profound perspective. It didn't understand concepts like interstellar diplomacy or cultural exchange. It only knew that Sarah represented safety, comfort, and love in a vast universe that had suddenly become frightening and lonely. The tiny creature's trust was absolute and unconditional. "You want me to stay with you," Sarah murmured, feeling the infant's contentment flow through their link. "But you also want to learn about your own people, don't you?" The response came as a mixture of curiosity and cautious hope. The infant was intrigued by the complex light patterns the adult Zephyrians produced, drawn to the sophisticated bioelectromagnetic communications it could sense but not yet understand. Its developing mind craved the knowledge and cultural connection that only its own species could provide. "So we both want the same thing," Sarah realized, "to grow and learn while keeping our connection strong." Dr. Webb's voice came through the intercom. "Sarah, the Zephyrian delegation needs to depart within 6 hours to maintain their ship's optimal travel window. They're requesting your decision." Through the expanded network, Sarah could sense Ambassador 7th of Dawn's patient but pressing concern. The diplomatic mission had already been delayed beyond acceptable parameters, and further postponement could create complications with other interstellar obligations. But there were practical considerations beyond the alien schedule. Sarah's life on Earth included responsibilities and relationships that couldn't simply be abandoned. Her elderly mother depended on her for support. Her nursing career represented 15 years of dedicated service to New Geneva Medical Center. Her friends and colleagues had become an extended family. "I need to discuss this with my mother," Sarah announced. "This decision affects more than just me and the infant." Dr. Okafor arranged for a secure communication link to Sarah's family home. The conversation that followed was perhaps the most difficult of Sarah's life. Explaining to her 73-year-old mother that her only daughter might leave Earth to raise an alien infant on a distant world challenged every assumption about normal family relationships. "Mom, I know this sounds impossible to understand," Sarah said through the communication system while maintaining contact with the infant. "But this baby needs me to survive and develop properly. Without consistent care from someone it's bonded with, it could suffer permanent psychological damage." Her mother's response came after a long pause filled with obvious emotional struggle. "Sarah, dear, you've always put other people's needs before your own. Even as a child, you brought home injured animals and spent your allowance on donations to charity. But this is asking you to give up your entire life." Through their connection, the infant could sense Sarah's emotional turmoil and began showing signs of distress. Its bioluminescent patterns dimmed and became irregular, while its vital signs reflected the anxiety it was absorbing from its caregiver. "It's not giving up my life, Mom," Sarah replied, gently stroking the infant's arm to provide reassurance. "It's expanding my life in ways I never imagined possible. The Zephyrians are offering me opportunities to learn and grow that don't exist anywhere on Earth. But what about your responsibilities here? Your career? Your friends? What about me?" The pain in her mother's voice cut through Sarah's heart like a physical wound. The bioelectromagnetic connection with the infant amplified every emotion, making the conversation almost unbearably intense. Ambassador 7th Light of Dawn approached the communication network, its patterns conveying formal request for permission to participate in the family discussion. Sarah granted access, allowing the alien diplomat to address her mother directly through the translation interface. "Honored parent of caregiver Sarah." The ambassador's words came through Sarah's interpretation, carrying the formal respect Zephyrian culture accorded to family elders. "We understand the magnitude of sacrifice we request. Our government offers full support for maintaining connection between caregiver Sarah and her Earth family, including regular transport and communication privileges." Dr. Tanaka was monitoring the expanded bioelectromagnetic field as multiple consciousness participated in the network. "The communication complexity is extraordinary. The ambassador is literally sharing emotional understanding with your mother through your connection with the infant." The effect was immediate and profound. Sarah's mother could suddenly sense the depth of the infant's need and the genuine care the Zephyrians felt for both the baby and her daughter. The alien perspective on family, responsibility, and love flowed through the connection, providing understanding that words alone could never convey. "Oh my," her mother whispered, her voice filled with wonder and new comprehension. "I can feel how much that little one needs you, and how much the Zephyrians respect what you've done." Through the network, Ambassador Seventh Light of Dawn shared additional information about the practical arrangements. Sarah would maintain Earth citizenship while holding provisional status on Zephyr Prime. Regular visits home would be not just permitted, but encouraged as part of the cultural exchange program. Her mother would receive full support and could even visit the alien world if she chose. "The Zephyrian government views your family as extended participants in this arrangement," Sarah translated. "They're offering your mother full medical care and support as recognition for her sacrifice in allowing me to serve as the infant's caregiver." Her mother's response carried a mixture of amazement and maternal pride. "Sarah, if this is truly what you feel called to do, then you have my blessing. Just promise me you'll stay in regular contact and come home when you can." With her mother's support secured, Sarah turned her attention to the medical team that had become her colleagues and friends over the years of crisis management. Dr. Webb stepped forward as their spokesman. "Sarah, you've been the heart of our pediatric intensive care unit for longer than some of these doctors have been practicing medicine," he said formally. "While we'll miss your expertise and dedication, we recognize that you're embarking on something historically significant. You carry our respect and best wishes wherever this journey takes you." Dr. Okafor nodded agreement. "The protocols you've developed for interspecies medical care will become the foundation for future xenobiological medicine. Your pioneering work will save lives across multiple species for generations to come." Dr. Tanaka was more direct in her enthusiasm. "What you're about to undertake represents the greatest advancement in interspecies relations since first contact. The knowledge you'll gain and share will benefit both civilizations immeasurably." Through the bioelectromagnetic network, the Zephyrian specialists conveyed their own perspective on Sarah's decision. Healer Many Colors Flowing shared detailed information about the facilities and support systems available on Zephyr Prime. Caregiver Starsong Janul offered guidance on the integration process and the developmental milestones the infant would experience. "They're providing me with comprehensive preparation," Sarah reported to the human team. "Advanced language instruction, cultural orientation, and specialized training in Zephyrian childcare techniques. I won't be going in blind." Lieutenant Colonel Hayes approached the matter from a security perspective. "The intelligence value of your position will be enormous, but that also creates certain risks and responsibilities. Are you prepared for the scrutiny and expectations that come with being humanity's primary liaison to an advanced alien civilization?" Through the connection, Sarah could sense the infant's growing excitement as the possibility of keeping their bond while exploring its heritage became more real. The tiny creature's bioluminescent patterns brightened with anticipation and hope. "I'm prepared to serve humanity's interests while fulfilling my responsibilities to this infant," Sarah replied. "The two goals aren't in conflict, they're complementary." Ambassador Seventh Light of Dawn began transmitting departure preparations through the bioelectromagnetic network. The ship's systems needed time to configure proper environmental controls for human passenger requirements, and diplomatic protocols required formal documentation of the arrangement. "We have 2 hours to complete the necessary preparations," Sarah announced. "If I'm going to do this, the decision needs to be final." Dr. Webb initiated the formal documentation process while the Zephyrian delegation prepared their ship for interspecies travel. But the most important preparation was emotional, helping the infant understand the journey ahead while ensuring its psychological stability during the transition. Through their connection, Sarah shared her own excitement and curiosity about Zephyr Prime. The infant responded with eager anticipation, its bioluminescent patterns creating displays of wonder and adventure. Together, they explored the possibilities ahead, new worlds to discover, new knowledge to gain, new relationships to build. "The infant is ready," Sarah announced to both delegations. It understands that we're embarking on an adventure together, and it's excited about the possibilities. The final hour passed in a blur of preparations and farewells. Sarah's personal belongings were quickly packed, though most of her Earth possessions would remain with her mother. Medical records were compiled and transmitted to Zephyrian databases. Diplomatic documentation was completed and filed with both governments. Most importantly, the infant was prepared for travel in a specialized bio-support system that would maintain the optimal environment while allowing continuous contact with Sarah. The tiny creature seemed to understand the significance of the moment, its patterns displaying calm confidence rather than anxiety. As they prepared to board the Zephyrian ship, Sarah took one last look at the hospital that had been her professional home for 15 years. The medical team gathered to see them off, their faces showing mixtures of pride, sadness, and excitement for the unprecedented journey ahead. "Thank you," she said simply, "for trusting my instincts, supporting my decisions, and helping me save this precious life." Dr. Webb stepped forward with a formal presentation case, a gift from the entire medical staff, advanced Earth medical instruments, and supplies in case you need to provide human-style medical care on Zephyr Prime. The Zephyrian ship's interior was a marvel of organic architecture and bioluminescent technology. Crystalline walls pulsed with gentle light, while living systems maintained atmosphere and navigation through processes that seemed more biological than mechanical. Sarah's quarters were configured specifically for human physiological needs, while allowing easy access to the infant's care area. Ambassador 7th Light of Dawn conducted a formal ceremony recognizing Sarah's new status as interspecies caregiver and cultural liaison. The ritual involved complex bioelectromagnetic exchanges that established her position within Zephyrian social hierarchy while maintaining her Earth citizenship. As the ship prepared for departure, Sarah maintained continuous contact with the infant, whose excitement levels were approaching dangerous peaks. The tiny creature had never experienced interstellar travel, and the prospect of returning to its home world was almost overwhelming. "Easy, little one," Sarah murmured, her bioelectromagnetic presence providing stability and reassurance. "We're going on the greatest adventure of our lives, but we're going together." Through the ship's viewing portals, Earth grew smaller as they achieved orbital altitude. Sarah felt a momentary pang of homesickness, but the infant's absolute trust and joy through their connection reminded her that she was exactly where she needed to be. The journey to Zephyr Prime would take 18 standard days, providing ample time for Sarah to begin her cultural education and for the infant to prepare for reunion with its species. But more importantly, it would allow their bond to strengthen and evolve, creating the foundation for a truly unprecedented interspecies relationship. As the stars began to shift around them, and Earth became just another point of light among countless others, Sarah Chen settled in for the greatest adventure in human history. She had saved an alien infant against all predictions, and now she would help it bridge the gap between two civilizations. The nurse who had risked everything to preserve one precious life was about to become humanity's ambassador to the stars, proving that sometimes the most important decisions aren't made by governments or scientists, but by individuals willing to act on compassion and instinct when faced with the impossible. Behind them, Earth continued its ancient rotation, but the universe had changed forever. One human's dedication to preserving life had opened new possibilities for cooperation, understanding, and friendship between species separated by vast distances, but united by the universal bonds of care, protection, and love. The infant's bioluminescent patterns pulsed gently against Sarah's hand as they traveled toward their new life among the stars, carrying hope for a future where the barriers between species could be bridged by the simple act of one being caring for another.